Hey, there we are.
We're
Hello,
on.
everyone. It's June, and it's our time for our June Lightroom Hangout with Photo Focus. And super excited. This month we have my usual friend and co-host, Levi Sim. Hey, Levi, how are you?
All right. Doing well
Uh,
this month.
yeah, you're great, and you're home, right, at
I am home.
the
Yes.
moment?
Yes. I'm in
Excellent.
my naked office. My new office has not been embellished yet. We'll
Yeah,
be working on
it's
that.
it's nice. It's very calming, unlike my very disorganized background. Good to see you again. And we have a very special guest from Drobo. Mark Fuccio is here. And Mark, where are you coming to us from today?
I'm also at my home,
All right.
so have dogs that they're sort of sleeping right now, but they're sort of not used to having people around this time of day, so we might have some unexpected drop-in guests.
That's fine. Yeah,
Okay.
I just kicked my dog out of the office. He may try to return. And, Levi has some stashed around his office as well, I think there. So yeah, that's fine. That's it's a hangout, so we're casual, and it's the summer, so anything goes in the summer.
Great.
So Mark, can you tell us a little bit about Drobo and kind of why are you here on our hangout today?
Good question. So I was with Drobo quite a long time, about 5.5 years, from July of 2005 until just after Macworld in 2011. And I was responsible for the initial running product management and selecting our launch target market. And after doing a hell of a lot of work, we came up with a total non-obvious answer that we should target photographers and creatives, and then more generally that we should be focusing on people who have a lot of data. People tend to be a little bit more the early adopters and geeks in terms of some of those spectrum. So spent a lot of time there. We launched 9 products. Then the board of directors decided, well, if Drobo is doing really well among all these creatives, what if we took it to the enterprise and started to do that? And I realized, no, this is not going to be a happy ending, because we optimize and design Drobo so that it is very sophisticated. And a lot of people comment that there's almost no knobs or levers, almost nothing to do, and that's by design, that's by purpose.
Yeah.
And in enterprise storage, IT guys, they're not afraid of managing RAID arrays and volumes and everything else. So it's completely wrong fit, and decide, well, unless you're going to get another $200 million to build out the feature set, this is not going to do the right thing. So
Right.
I left, restarted consulting business, and Drobo went through its rationalization process, and got sold to a new CEO and investor group. And last summer, he reached out to me, and starting in August, I've been doing some consulting work just to help them get back to basics and refocus on a lot of their core market, which this day and age is basically people have needs for storage requirements, but they don't have sophisticated IT to support them. And in the old days, I used to call that the Fortune 7 million, because that's the number of companies in the U.S. that have 100 or fewer people.
Yeah.
Right.
That's typically about the size where they get their own in-house IT. So
Yeah.
so we're here, and I've had 3 other storage clients. A couple of them went successful acquisitions and exits. I have one right now doing a file system that's in high-end enterprise stuff that's in a stealth mode. So I guess I have storage in my bones,
Great.
if not in my DNA.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk?
God help us.
That's awesome. So we can be asking you questions about backup in general, storage in general, Drobo specifically, and
Exactly.
you're our go-to guy for that. Drobo's also been a sponsor of our Hangout, so thank you for that, and going to be for a few more months coming up. Also want to thank our other sponsor, Perfectly Clear, from Affintech. They have been a sponsor for our Hangout as well, and they have given us something to give away, right, Levi?
Right. We've got 3 prizes today.
3
We've
prizes
got
to give away.
1 complete license for Perfectly Clear. One license for Perfectly Clear Complete, and 2 licenses for Perfect Eyes. And these tools are marvelous. I've got it open right now on my desktop as I finish some portraits and some interior photographs for a client.
And is that the one that just launched recently? There was
No, so there's a brand new one that just came out this week called Perfect Skin,
Perfect
and it
Skin,
is the
right.
best way to retouch portraits. And in fact, we held a hangout all about that yesterday on Photo Focus, so you can catch the live replay for that one on Photo Focus as well with the indefatigable Christy Shirk teaching us how to do.
She's great. So all of our Lightroom Hangouts are also available on Photo Focus, as well as all the other Photo Focus Hangouts. So if you tune in late or you miss part of this one, as soon as this one's done, it's pretty much available right on Photo Focus on YouTube as well. But if you're here and you're watching us now, you are the ones who get to enter your name in the hat for Levi's hat, no less, for winning one of those prizes. So the way that you do that is by giving us a question or a comment, and the way you do that, let me share my screen here, and I'm going to show you my go-to screen captures for doing this. Hopefully, all right. Why are you doing this to me now? All right.
No, it's good. We see it.
Can you see it? Okay, good.
Yes.
It was trying to give permission. All right. So here's my go-to, so I can say hi to Levon. Hello, Levon. All right. So if you're watching this from the Photo Focus site itself, there's the live stream is happening there. But you want to click on over to the Google Plus event page for the Hangout. It will look similar to this. Click the play button. It'll start to play, and you'll see there's this Q&A option. Once the Hangout is actually playing, up in the top is this little grid of icon here. Click on that, then go to Q&A. That will open up the side panel for Q&A. Click on the green button there, ask a question or leave a comment. That's going to reveal your name to us, and then that's how that gets entered into the drawing for winning the prize. Levi tracks all of those, and at the end of our Hangout, we give them away to live listeners. So you've got to be here to win it, and you've got to kind of reveal yourself with a little game show run down the aisle.
That's right.
So that we know that you're here. So at any point you have a question about Lightroom, about backup storage, about Drobo, even about Perfectly Clear, anything else that falls in those general areas, we're happy to try and answer those questions for you or direct you to some resources to get those answered. So,
yes. So maybe just to warm up, during the pre-show we were talking a little bit about some of my recent storage adventures, and
yes,
yeah, so, sort of, Rob, you asked a question. I remember, sort of way back when in 2006 in Photoshop world, taking an early prototype unit, and this is ugly. It was a box, with a bunch of cables out the back. But we went to a Photoshop world to meet with Peter Krogh, because he had just at that point published the first edition of his damn book, Digital Asset Management, and we told him what we're about, showed him a demo. I think sort of the quintessential Drobo demo. You start to play a video, you pull a drive out, and everything keeps on going. You don't even have a flicker or a dropped frame. And he said a couple things that I think have really stuck with me all this time. And he said, if Drobo does what it does, and I just met you guys and you're a startup, I don't have any reason to doubt, but I'm from Missouri. Figured spiritually I'm from Missouri. Show it to me, prove it. He said, but if what you do, he says, you solve 2 of the 3 problems I teach my students, about hard drives. This is, number 1, they fill up, and number 2, they break, and hopefully in that order.
Right.
So that was really, just leading into this, the whole vision, that Jeff Barrell and his co-founder Julian had, for the product, which is, all of our lives are going digital, and if we pay 39 cents for a song, or we just get a crummy photo that's blurry that somebody took of us at a picnic or a company Christmas party, we want to keep all these assets forever. So
right.
The whole idea behind Drobo was it has multiple dimensions of sophistication to do that. One is the sort of thing it's known for, of you protect against drive failure, but also just as important that you can upsize the storage capacity. And I'm going through an exercise in that myself, in that I've had a 5D that I use for storing media and movies and TV shows, and
that's a bay with 5 drives in it.
That's correct. Yeah,
and
it's
you can choose any size of drives to stick it there.
I think we're getting a little echo there.
Echo. So, yeah, so it's a Drobo. It's a 5-drive unit. I have it connected by a Thunderbolt to a Mac Mini, so it's sort of our home center point for data serving and backup. And it was getting full. So I had been watching this for 4, 5, 6 months, and finally got to the point where it hit that magic 85%, and one of the lights turned red on the smallest drive. So I had 4 6 terabytes and 1 3 terabyte drive. So called Amazon and got a delivery last night, and popped the drive in, and then woke up this morning and was looking at it, and said take about 46 hours to rebuild the array. And I did a little calculation. What would it take? Since I have a backup on my backup, which is probably good practice for everybody, because you never know if something bad could happen to that system. You have a backup of your backup, so I could copy it back on, and that's off of Drobo, one of the iSCSI, the 8-bay models, and they're, according to the calculation, it would take, like 22 hours. So I figure, aha, this is my opportunity. Earlier this year, there was this firmware update so that you can make the 5D present itself as a 64 terabyte volume. And even with what I had 2 Drobos. I had Drobo and Drobo 2, and one I didn't even use, and it's just the mental speed bump of what you put where. I just want one space that has all the files and folders that I organize it in. So I reformatted it as a 64 terabyte. I also made sure I had the dual disk redundancy, and that's maybe a little bit of technical speak, but what it means is it raises the standard and will protect your data against 2 hard drive failures. And the reason that's important is this may be a little bit inside baseball, but typically most people get a system and they get maybe 3 drives or 5 drives at a time, which means they basically came from the same manufacturing lot. And there's a lot of high-end reliability studies that people have done where they find that if for whatever reason if a drive does fail, then its cohort, all its brothers, sisters, and cousins from the same manufacturing build, they are at a higher rate of failure. And the problem is if you're doing a RAID array, if you have a second drive fail, it can be lethal. It can take out your entire array. And that's one thing a lot of people just really really superstitious about. So Drobo handles that in a couple ways. Number one, it gives you the option that you can decide, okay, I'll take a little bit more space, and I'll use that, I'll invest that as sort of my data protection overhead to protect me against 2 drives failing. And the other thing Drobo does is, unlike all the other RAID arrays, is we'll do a proportional rebuild time. So if I'd be using a competitive system, if all I had is 1 byte of data, if it took 22 hours to rebuild that entire array, it would take 22 hours. With Drobo, if all I had is 1 byte, it would go like that. The rebuild time is proportional to how full it is, which makes sense, because why do you want to, if the device is, say, 2/3 full, why do you want to try to rebuild, all the other 2/3 of stuff and take it off and restripe it and write it back on? And the reason is traditional RAID is dumb. They don't know where data is. They don't know where user data is, where it's full. So this is one thing that Drobo can do that is a proportional rebuild.
Nice.
And to put that in context, when I first did a similar operation, my first Drobo, I had 4 enormous 500 gigabyte drives, and that started my data collection binge. So then so after maybe about a year, I needed to upsize to 1 terabyte, and that process took like 18 hours. and that's for maybe a terabyte worth of data. So now it would take what was I saying, 42 hours for rebuilding about 11 terabytes worth of data. So one thing that Drobo's done is they've optimized the rebuild process. So yes, it will take a while, but it is considerably faster than it used to be, and compared to other RAID arrays of the same capacity, it goes faster because it doesn't waste time rebuilding just basically blank empty disk sectors.
Cool. We got our first question. John Webb is asking if definitely hearing an echo. Are you hearing that, Levi?
I've got a strong echo. Hey, Mark, try your headphones for us again.
Okay, so let's see. Insight, it's using Podcaster. It is using the mic. Okay, that's set the way it was. So let me mute myself while you're reading. Maybe that will help.
Yeah, sure. So John's just asking if Drobo is developing an SSD system.
Which is an interesting question because...
Oh, and you got to unmute yourself.
Yeah,
okay.
we got it. There you go.
Pardon, would you read the question again, Rob?
Yeah, he's asking if Drobo is going to develop an SSD system using solid-state drives, I'm guessing.
So let me share sort of general philosophies, and rather than talk about specific future products. One of the things is that the Drobo Mini, the 4-bay, that's been qualified with a set of 4 SSDs, and that's had a lot of fans in predominantly in the video production world, where they have enough capacity they can take it out in the field. It's lightweight, it's portable, and Levi's holding one there, and
This is
I think it's smaller than his hat. So that will just put it in context. I didn't say head. It's smaller than his hat. Just puts in context his portability. So Drobo will have support for that. On the other Drobos, you could use SSDs, but it will support it in terms of using the trim commands and whatnot. Sort of the vision is that people can buy SSDs, and SSDs typically are in a 2.5-inch form factor, so you need to get a conversion dock. On the drobostore.com, there's listed in the knowledge base the variety of model numbers that you can buy at Amazon or B&H Photo or wherever. So you can put the SSDs in. The thing most people say is, well, I don't want to do that because on a dollars per unit of capacity and a dollar per gigabyte basis, SSDs are 8 or 10 or maybe as much as 12 times more expensive than spinning hard drives. So from our view, we're sort of agnostic. Just like we don't care what size drive you use, we don't care what vendor you use. We don't, at one level, we don't care what type of drive, whether it's spinning mechanical or hard or SSD. So
so we have an SSD system. I mean, we can just put SSDs in what we've got, and it runs. I don't know. I can't imagine it running faster because it's fast. Like, I don't notice any slowdown whatsoever in my work. I'm not a video professional, but even with my large photographs, I don't notice any trouble.
Right.
So,
and
I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, right. So some of the things we do is we use SSDs, to accelerate performance. So in the 5D, for instance, there is a slot for an SSD, MSATA card, which is something. I thought I had maybe a memory stick here, but I don't see it. But it's something. So here's a parking sticker. So it's something maybe like literally about that size that just plugs in the bottom, and photographers love that because it accelerates. Is designed to accelerate small files. So what is that? That's all the little JPEG thumbnail images. Last week, Drobo introduced a model called the Drobo 5DT that was designed and inspired by the needs of photographers.
Right.
That includes an SSD acceleration card as part of the system. It includes Thunderbolt cable, USB cable, and it has a 3-year Drobo Care warranty. So we've upped the warranty for Creative Pros where people want much more longevity and comfort. And then on the Drobo store, we sell it either without drives, which means you go and hunt, or we sell it with 15, 20, and 30 terabyte drive bundles. So the whole thing is targeted for for photographers. So again, going back to Rob, the original question, sort of our view is, unless we're actually going to make something that was really super small and compact, these current arrays are agnostic, and people can use whichever one they want. So I'd ask him to probe as a follow-up if the reason he's asking for SSD is does he believe in SSDs and for some reason, or is he really asking for it from a mobility and low power consumption point of view?
All right. Well, John, if you're still listening and you want to follow up, please do so. Anyone else want to ask a question? That's how you get entered into the drawing. So questions, comments, or welcome.
Or leave a message and say hello and say,
yes,
nice red shirt, Rob. That's
so we did get another question. Mark, if you wouldn't mind muting again.
Right, or put on your headphones, and that'll take care of it permanently. I don't know why it's changed for us, but put your headphones back on, and that'll solve our echoes.
It's hard to listen to, I think, as a audience member. So Tom is asking us. He says, "I just purchased an unpopulated Drobo 5N. Is it better to use NAS rated drives like the Western Digital Reds, or to go with something like a Western Digital Black performance drive? The SSD option is intriguing."
Okay, so for the 5N, I'd recommend going with something like the red drive. The little higher performance you get from the black drive will be not as apparent because there the gigabit Ethernet interface will become the bottleneck, if you will, in terms of what the overall capacity is. So unlike a 5D where Thunderbolt, you get way more performance, and for that I would recommend the black drives. If it's a network attached drive, because the weakest link, so to speak, is going to be, and it sounds strange just to say that a gigabit is a slow speed, but it is nowadays. I'd recommend save a couple bucks and maybe go get larger drives and put it into a dual drive redundancy.
What are the differences between these drives? Like, we've got red drives, we've got green drives, and we've got black drives, and we've got blue, and they've got a sticker on top of the drive that's a different color. And when I'm shopping for them on Amazon, I can see red, green, blue, black. What am I paying for? What's the black is more expensive?
Okay.
Green is cheap.
Yeah. So historically, I don't know, about 5-6 years ago, Western Digital, introduced the green drives, and basically they're lower power, and part of the reason they're lower power is they spin at 5,400 RPM instead of 7,200. So
So that's slower.
That'll
access my stuff slower.
Yes, less rotational velocity. It's slower, and then I think what collectively we at Drobo and the whole industry was finding is these things, when put in a multi-drive array, whether it's a Drobo or some of the other RAID arrays out there on the market, that they were suffering really wide performance variations. And I guess as they dug into it, they realized that some of their higher-end enterprise drives had some thing called NTLER, or low-level parameter, defining how long the drive will take to try to read your data before it times out. And if it's a single drive on a desktop system, if you're opening a photo, are you really going to see the difference if it responds in 15 milliseconds or 30 milliseconds? Probably not. But in a RAID array where it's working in conjunction with other drives, yes, that would be noticed as, oh, this drive is slow, and then ultimately you'll get marked as, oh, this is a bad drive. So what WD did is they introduced a red drive where they had tweaked some of these parameters so that it would be better behaved in in RAID arrays. So that's one of the key difference in some of the WD product line. Seagate also, they have low energy, so they spin lower.
Right.
The other difference really is some of it is the quality of the components, the type of components that are used in the drive, and also the duty cycle. If it's an enterprise drive, they'll use components and they'll do a lot more testing of drives from the lot, where they expect it to be used for a 24-hour-a-day duty cycle. A lot of the more consumer drives, they're expected maybe it would be 8 hours or 10 hours. So these go into affecting some of the nature of the components that they use, some of the amount of testing that they do, and ultimately the warranty period that they provide. So I look at it that drives are so relatively inexpensive. Avoid the bottom of the line. If you small, medium, large, just avoid the bottom of the line. Go to the middle lane, and that's going to be the red drives or the NAS drives, which is sort of synonymous terminology that both Seagate and WD use.
So I don't need 10,000 RPM drives.
No.
Like 7,200 RPMs is good.
7,200 RPMs is good. So once upon a time, an SE at Drobo did some performance testing between 7,200 and 10K RPM, and there was a little bit of a pickup, but it was under 5%. I forget the exact number. But again, 10K, they spin a lot faster, they generate a lot more heat, they cost more money. It's probably not worth it.
Right.
But
cool. Well, thank you. That's very helpful. And Rob, why don't you do our little station identification again here?
All right, Mark, if you would, there you go. Thank you. Sorry for the echo there. So this is our June Lightroom Hangout for Photo Focus, and we've got Mark Fuccio from Drobo here answering questions about backup and storage and drives and all kinds of techie, nerdy stuff related to backing up. We're looking for your questions. We've got some great ones so far. Thanks for sending those in, but also your comments. That's how you get entered to win our drawing. We're giving away some prizes from our other sponsor, Perfectly Clear. Has three prizes that we're going to be giving away, and the way you enter is just by leaving a question or leaving a comment. I'll share my screen if you tuned in late and missed that. Let's see. Just share my little desktop, and hopefully I still have that. Here I do. All right. So if you're looking at the Google Hangout page here, just click the play button. There's a Q&A button there. When the Hangout's actually playing, look up at the top, click on this icon, then choose Q&A. That's going to open the side panel where you can ask a new question, and those show up right for us on the side panel there, so we can get those questions answered as we're kind of going along. I also wanted to point out, and I'm going to post this on the Hangout page, on the Drobo website, there's actually a chart that goes over drive compatibility with the different units based on the different ways that you might be using it. So it's a resource that I use when I've got the drives for my units. The first Drobo I bought was in 2008.
Firewire, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I just used it for backup only. I didn't actually work off of it at the time. And it worked great for that. Just had it as an in-office backup unit. Now I've got the Drobo 5D, and I'm using that to work from. And what a difference a few, I guess, 6 years have made in technology and in storage capacity too. So it's great to see you guys moving forward like that. So I'm going to post that link on the show page there, so anyone else can find it.
Yeah. Hey, Rob. I'm a backup fiend. I back up my Lightroom catalog every time I quit Lightroom. So I know all my pictures are totally safe because I do that each time I close Lightroom, right? All my pictures are backed up? All set?
No, you're making sure I'm listening to you, aren't you? As I'm typing.
I'm absolutely speaking facetiously. So will you show us that, Rob, and show us tell us what that means when we click back, or shall I pull it up while you tell us what it means?
Yeah, why don't you do that? Why don't you pull it up? So, people struggle around backing up in part of not knowing what to back up or not knowing what is backed up when they click something that looks like a backup. And so answering Lightroom help desk questions, it really can get confusing because there seems to be a lot of pieces at play there. And so we've been talking just generally about storage and using these Drobo units because there's drive redundancy built in. So in case one of the drives fails on the unit that I'm using, my data is protected. Right? That's kind of the goal there by working off of one of these units, as opposed to me just using a regular external hard drive, which is pretty much what I use otherwise. If there's only one drive in it, that drive fails, that's bad for me, right? Unless I've got that backed up someplace else as well. So by working off one of these units, it's giving me that peace of mind that if one of the drives in the unit fails, my data is still protected. I can pop another drive in, it gets repopulated over all the drives again, and then I just can keep working there. So that's great. But in terms of Lightroom itself, Lightroom doesn't actually have a way to back up your photos. Now, someone will say, well, on the import dialog, there's the make a second copy to option there. And there is. In the file handling panel, there is this little checkbox, and when you check it, there's this little funny link, and you can click on that, and you can choose a place of where you want Lightroom to essentially make a backup of your memory card at that moment in time. And that's really useful at the point when you think about it, you've just come back from a shoot, you've got your photos on a little memory card, and that's a kind of fragile moment, right? Because they're just on that one little flimsy thing. And so when you pop that card in your card reader and Lightroom says, hey, since I'm going to be copying these photos to your primary storage place, how about I do you a favor and also copy them to a second location? That way now you've got your photos in two places at once, and you can take that memory card, put it back in your camera, format it, and you're at least got things in two places. Now, a lot of us, even if you have something running live as a backup, it takes a certain amount of time for your photos to get included in that backup. And so that's what that make a second copy to function is to give you that peace of mind of having your photos in two different drives immediately so that your full system backup, whatever that might be, has time to get those photos included in them. And preferably you've got it now in three places, right?
Right.
But that's it as far as Lightroom does. And once that make a second copy to function is done running, Lightroom doesn't do anything more with those photos. If you now go in your workflow and you delete a few of the bad ones, or you rename them, or you move them to different folders or whatever, Lightroom doesn't go back and update those. If you send copy to Photoshop and now you've got some iterative copies made, Lightroom is not updating that second copy location with the new copies you've made. That's a one-time memory card update copy, I should say, and that's it. It's like, reptile lays its eggs and walks away from it and never goes back to it, right? So you want something that is also kind of backing up your live stuff, right? And so because you're making changes, you're renaming, you're moving, you're making new master versions, you're making composites, you're maybe doing panos or HDR, so you're making new versions. You want all that new data to also be being backed up. And that's where having not only like I have this 5D that I'm working from that's got some redundancy built into it, but I need a backup of that as well because, say a meteor comes down, not hopefully when I'm sitting here, and takes out my office, it's going to take out my Drobo too, or if somebody comes in and steals all my stuff, that's gone too. So you definitely want to have another way to back up, and Lightroom doesn't have that. And that's where you need to have some kind of, full system backup in place that is going to probably be some other software. Like on my Mac, I have Time Machine. I also use a cloud service called CrashPlan. There's other services. Backblaze is another. Carbonite is another. There's lots of different ways to kind of back up all of your data and get it off-site. So there's all those pieces you want to be thinking about. And on photofocus.com, there's a number of fantastic articles on this backing up process. about this 3-2-1 concept of backing up. That I'll put links into our show page so you can follow those up with. But now, that was a very long lead up, Levi. You've been very patient indulging me in that. I had to say it all because it was a mouthful. There's the whole catalog piece, all right? And so you're doing all that work inside of Lightroom. Your photos those are the most important, but you've also invested a certain amount of time in all the work you've done processing it. And every time you move any slider inside of Lightroom, you add a keyword, you add a title, a caption, star rating, anything you do inside of Lightroom is written to that Lightroom catalog file, that Lightroom database. And Lightroom does have a function to back up that catalog. And that is what Levi has up on the screen for the last 10 minutes of me yakking, is this backup catalog dialog box. Now, ideally, you want to have this location, this backup folder, on a different drive than the drive you're running your catalog from, all right? That's not always possible. Like on my laptop, it only has one drive, and if I don't have an external drive connected, I don't have any place else to send that backup except the one drive I have. So what I do in that case, like when I'm traveling, is I use Dropbox, free service Dropbox, and I save my catalog to my Dropbox folder. And starting in Lightroom 6, Lightroom CC, when this backup process runs, it actually also compresses your backup, the backup copy of your catalog into a zip file. And these catalogs compress really well. They get much, much smaller. So it doesn't take very long to have that catalog, this compressed version of the catalog, copied up to the Dropbox cloud, and then it even gets copied to my other computers as well. So that's kind of my, in a pinch way to back up, so I have some sense that my catalog is on a different drive.
So I could keep my main catalog still on my desktop, but I could save the backup only to another drive. I could save it here to my, if I had Dropbox attached, I could have it right here.
Exactly.
Or to my Google Drive, or to my, well, here's a transporter, but I could also do it to my new 5N, I guess, and access that.
Yeah. So you just want it to be, this is a real story, sad but true. One Friday night was sitting in front of my laptop with a glass of wine, and I didn't even get to drink any of it.
One Friday night not long ago.
I tipped the entire glass of wine into my laptop. And thankfully, the drive actually was fine. The motherboard was not fine, but it was a moment of real panic there as I watched this red liquid going right into the keyboard, and that's all it takes, to lose a lot of work. So you want to have that stuff backed up as quickly as possible to another drive in case something as stupid as that happens. That self-inflicted injury, boy, right. it's painful.
So Rob?
Yeah, sorry, Mark.
Yeah, I would ask a question. If people were to ask you, should I use Time Machine or should I use other things like Carbon Copy Cloner or Super Duper? Do you have a preference, and which one is much more tailored or appropriate for a photography workflow?
Well, first of all, use one.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Any one is better than none. And I actually have gotten so paranoid now that I use more than one. And maybe this is because I see so many stories of horror, as well as my own that I just contributed now to the public good, but that I get a little more paranoid. So I actually use Super Duper. There's one thing I do is I have just a little passport drive.
Yeah.
And I plug this in, and I have Super Duper. Essentially, this drive is the same capacity as my laptop hard drive. And Super Duper, what it does is it actually clones my internal hard drive to this external drive and even makes it bootable. So I could actually run essentially my laptop off of this drive if I connect it to your, MacBook or Levi's MacBook, right? So that's one way that I do it. I also use Time Machine, and I have Time Machine going to my 5N, and so that's kind of running in the background. I have Time Machine backing up live everything that's on this computer to my network attached storage to my 5N through my network. All right, so that's kind of that. And then I have Crash Plan, which also backs up my laptop to the Crash Plan server in the magical cloud as well. So the problem with cloud storage, I mean, it's great, for someone that works from home and
Takes
has
a
all.
long time to get there.
It really takes a long time. Takes a long time. You know, and I don't, and I'm not like a video
I
guy.
mean, we're talking weeks to get
Yeah.
there. We're talking a long time.
When I first get like 4 terabytes of data up there, I had my machine running 24/7 for about 4 weeks, just so it could chug it on up into the cloud. It's a little better once it's, you know, once you've got that kind of big bulk of data. And some of those cloud service plans have a way that you can kind of seed your backup. I don't know all the details, and it's different for each one, and there may be a limit to how much you can kind of seed it, but meaning you send them a physical drive to kind of speed up that process. And
Right.
I think that's probably going to happen more in the future because we just have so much data.
Okay, so I've just done a quick calculation here. Earlier in the broadcast or the Hangout, I mentioned you know, doing a reinitialization and copying all the data back to my 5D, and you know, it's predicted to take a little over 24 hours. If same thing to go up to a cloud at sort of what I see is sort of the high watermark. I have a 5 megabit per second pipe going up, or at least that's sort of the best case from some of the speed test results. That would take, in comparison, 204 days. You know, but you know, and the thing is, yeah, at that point, I mean, it just, you know, yeah, who knows? I mean, we'll have a new president by then. So.
Right. Yeah,
it just takes forever.
So, you know, in the interim, you know, what you can do is have another drive of equal capacity to your needs that you just mirror using any of those softwares. And for Windows, I use Vice Versa Pro. There's lots of different software for just when it comes to mirroring one drive to another, or synchronizing one drive, you know, one folder to another even. And then just take that drive to another location. You know, take it to mom's house, take it to your office if you have another office. You know, take it someplace else that's just geographically different from where most of your data sits, and that gives you at least, you know, the window of time from when you last updated that drive some protection. And it doesn't cost you any more than buying the drive. And that's kind of a low-tech way to do it. And I definitely recommend, if you have that, you know, have that instead of waiting for all this stuff to go up in the cloud.
Right. I would really underscore that point, which is, you know, actually to separate the idea behind a bootable backup is there is time and energy to, you know, in terms of your files. Now, yes, if you use a Mac, you might argue, okay, well, you know, the Mac App Store I can re-download. Well, really, every single program, I bet you there's going to be 2 or 3 critical programs that you are not realizing that, oh, they're not in the Mac App Store.
That's right.
And then you have all your settings and passwords, and that stuff just doesn't, you know, doesn't happen automatically. So it's really, and there are things coming in Windows, and I know at Photo Focus, I know Vanelli's planning some articles to talk about how to do it in Windows, because it seems it's a little bit easier in the Mac world. But he's talking about how you back up and protect some of your OS drives as well. And the real point there is that protects you. It's time. If it's bootable, boom, you have it right away. You know, otherwise, you know, okay, it only takes a half a day, you know, to reconfigure and everything, but that's a half a day of your time.
And it could be and these things always happen at the worst possible time, right? It's not like when you're like, I'm on vacation, it's no big deal. No, I was in the middle of writing a book when that happened. Yeah, it's not good. So as far as, you know, there's a lot of components to look at, and it's hard for us to, again, name them all. So, you know, I'm going to put those links to the Photo Focus articles. Manelli's written a lot of them that are going to help you to kind of, you want to take some time to think this through, think about all of your pieces. And so one of those pieces Levi was showing is the Lightroom catalog. Having that back up to another drive at the bare minimum gives you that sense of redundancy of having your catalog in 2 places. And now, when you're backing up your catalog, you're kind of protecting yourself against a couple of things. One is disk failure. We talk about a lot because it happens. All right, whether you've poured the liquid in yourself or just a function of it just spun one time too many and it just said, okay, I'm done. Whatever those reasons are, the drives will die. So you're preparing for that. But then there are things that, again, self-inflicted injuries. When you run Lightroom's catalog backup process, it creates a new copy of that catalog each time it runs. So you now have iterative copies of your catalog. And well, what happens there? So, well, catalogs can get corrupted. Sometimes that corruption happens and the catalog still functions, and so it might be good to have a few copies back. Sure, there's Time Machine or there's other programs that will save iterative copies of your files, and that's great. More the merrier, I think. But it's going to be probably easiest for you just to go pull up a recent backup copy, unzip it, and there you go. Another place I've seen that really help people is for things like making a book in the book module. All right, so they make a book. They spend a lot of time. There's like a 100-page book, doing all this layout stuff. They got it all dialed in, and then something goes wrong with the catalog, or they delete the collection, or they do something, and they lose that book. Well, if you had created a backup copy of your catalog, that book collection may still be in that last backup that you made, and you can very easily export just that collection out of that catalog and import it into your working master catalog, and you didn't lose anything. So there's lots of good reasons. It's free, it's built in, it's automated. You just run it. You know, you don't have to really think about it. And so on that dialogue that Levi had up, there's even a button in there that says skip. So that comes up at the schedule, whatever you choose. Now I have mine set to every time Lightroom exits. All right.
Me too.
And I exit a lot
and I don't use it every time.
That's right. So I try to do it at least once a week, because sometimes you quit and you have to run. So you don't want that taking some time. But on average, I probably end up using it once a week. Sometimes deliberately I'll go, I just did a bunch of work. I know I need to do it now, and I do it. That's why I have it every time. So I have that little nag, that little like you better do it, and then I have the option if I want to do it at that point in time. And then every month or so, I'll go into that backup folder and I'll just delete the oldest ones, and I'll keep the most recent 3 or 4 just for what the heck. And then as long as you remember to go back and delete, because Lightroom doesn't ever go back and touch those again. You want to manage those backup copies over time, and if you've never done that, guess what? You're going to get back a lot of space. Some people have never deleted their old backup copies of the catalog, and now they just got back several hundred gigabytes of space. So it's easy to manage, it's easy to forget, but you want to be on top of that. And the only place, this is important, the only place you can choose that location is right in that little dialog box that Levi had up there. The little choose button.
Could you show us that again, Levi?
Yeah, I have to cancel my backing up.
Oh, okay. I'll do it because
yeah.
mine's kind of loaded up here. So let's see.
Mine will take a minute to cancel. So.
All right. You see Lightroom up here?
It's coming. Yes.
All right. You see it now? All right. So the first place you can go is to the catalog settings. And that's under the Lightroom menu on a Mac and under the Edit menu on Windows. And this is where you can choose the frequency. It also will show you where your catalog currently resides. So here it is on just in my Pictures folder. That's where I'm working out of. Right? If I click that, it would open Finder. If I was on Windows, it would open Windows Explorer, and it would show me that folder. All right? So now, if I quit Lightroom, there's that little dialog. And now in Lightroom 6, Lightroom CC, I can also change that schedule here. So I find just having it every time is good because you can skip this time. All right. And then this is where you choose the location. Click this choose button. See, I have it going to my Dropbox folder. If I was on a desktop and it was always connected to another drive, I would have it go there instead. But this works for me. And then these boxes, they make the backup take a little longer, but I find it's useful. If it's going to test the integrity and tell me there's a problem ahead of time, I'd rather know. Optimize, my catalog here has 133 or so thousand images. There's a lot in there. If I do lots of work, optimizing can help, but there is a function just to run the optimize under the file menu, I believe. Oh, it won't show when this is up there. So that's optional, but definitely I think testing integrity is good. If I click back up, it runs, but I'm going to skip this time and not back up, and then Lightroom will just exit out of there. So that's going to back up your catalog. So you're doing something else to back up your photos and the rest of the important files on your system, your email, your passwords, all that other stuff that you want to also recover from in case of disaster. And then you're backing up your catalog, you're backing up your photos. That's kind of your photography important stuff. There's also your presets, your templates. Those might be important for you to keep backed up, especially if you've invested time and money in creating those. Excuse me. I'll show you where you can find those if you don't know. I have to restart Lightroom again, but while that's cranking up there. So by default, Lightroom keeps your templates and your presets in a central location, all right? And so if we go back up to my Lightroom menu and I go to Preferences, and I click on this Preset tab, that would be under Edit Preferences on Windows. There's this button here to show Lightroom preset folder. And if you click on that, that's going to open the actual folder where all your presets and templates are stored. And it will show you even where that location is. It's somewhat buried in your system, okay? And on both Mac and Windows, it does try to hide this folder, this library folder on Mac, and it's the app data folder on Windows. So if you just kind of go right here and click that button, it's going to just show you that folder. And this might be a good folder to back up. Maybe keep that. If your whole system's being backed up, like by Time Machine or Crash Plan or some other service, then this is included. So that's great. But if it's not, if you don't have something that's kind of taking every file in your system into account, then you might want to make sure this is backed up somehow. Even if you just copy and paste this to another drive, it would be better than nothing at all. But I've got two different things backing up my entire system, so I know this is included. So that makes me happy. But you definitely want to think about all those different pieces. And then again, the important thing we were talking about kind of beforehand is imagine the worst case scenario. All right, the best case is you buy a new computer, but the worst case is you have to buy a new computer because you lost your old computer, right. So whatever reason. Do you know how to restore all of your files back again? And that is really, really important to know how to do, because that's the thing we're kind of preparing for, right? And so for folks who just kind of use their file browser and just kind of copy and paste files to different places, thinking they're just redundantly making copies, well, that's great, I guess, better than maybe nothing. But if you had to restore from that, oh, that's not going to be fun. More fun than not having anything? Yeah, sure, but you can do it. You can do better. There's so many ways that you can do better than that by having, these others looking up for backup software that's designed to back up your system. Usually has a way to restore your data as well. And so as far as Lightroom goes, if my drive that has my photos on it died, as long as I have an exact copy of those folders and the exact names and structure, I can just very easily reconnect Lightroom to this new folder, to this new drive, as if nothing had happened. Because Lightroom just stores the path to where those photos are. As long as that path stays the same, I'm golden. If the only thing that changes in that path is the name of the volume or the drive letter if I'm on Windows, that's really easy to fix. That's really easy to reconnect Lightroom that way. But if you had to kind of rebuild it manually, piece by piece, that would not be fun or pretty. So thinking about your system, thinking about how to back it up locally, because that's what you're most likely going to restore from if something happened, but also how to have a backup in another location physically away from you is really important. Kind of having that kind of three levels. You're working from something, you've got a backup that's local, and then you've got another backup that's someplace else. Right? That's kind of that 3-2-1 idea. So I'll put those links out there. Looks like we're getting near the end of our hour, and we have a few questions and comments here. So let me throw those out to Mark and see if we can talk about those before we wrap up. If you want to be entered to win our prizes, please throw your questions or comments in there before Levi closes his hat. So let's see. Start at the bottom, I guess. Tom
was just saying that 4 terabyte drives are really affordable right now, so that's a good tip.
Yeah.
And then Craig was asking, he says, my Drobo 5N has lots of files and Windows 10 is very slow to react when I want to rename or move a file to a different folder. Do you have any tips for helping that be faster, Mark?
So I think the underlying cause maybe you have a single directory with a large number of files, and here I'm thinking maybe hundreds or thousands. I don't know exactly what was a Tom what his use case is, but maybe one way to do this is better organize things into a little bit higher level clumps. So instead of having say one photo for 2016 for photos. Maybe have January, February, March, and then partition that way. And it could be photos or other work documents, but I think that illustrates the point. Some of the other things to look at is every now and then somebody will connect something, and they maybe have an older piece of network hardware, and if it's not fully gigabit rated, what will happen is then the 10100 Ethernet becomes the determining factor, the weakest link, if you will. So there you won't see anything more than like maybe 12 megabytes per second. So that's one thing that always, I mean, it still comes up with regularity of people getting something and think, oh, this is really slow. I can't get much more than 13 megabytes, and that's a telltale sign that there's an older piece of network here. So again, back to the user's case, I don't know if it was the transfer speed that was slow or just the responsiveness and seeing things, and that's that can be mitigated by introducing more directories, more hierarchy.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you.
So I posted those. I'm posting some links on the Hangout page, and I noticed there was a couple of questions on there too.
Okay.
Quick ones though. So Mike Dixon was asking if there's a way for Lightroom to do the backup without closing. No, that's an easy answer. You got to close Lightroom because remember it's backing up the database, so the database has to close, and then it makes a copy of itself as it's doing that. So no. And then Betty Lou was asking what Super Duper was. It's just software for cloning a drive to another drive, and I'll just put a link to that, and you can check it out and after the show's over.
Terrific. Terrific. And there's one other question here. It says, can you talk a little bit about using sidecar files to save metadata in your LR catalog? Is it possible to import sidecar files into a new LR catalog? So sidecar files keep the information that Lightroom is doing. So the only thing Lightroom can do to your original picture is delete it and move it. It doesn't. When you make a change in Lightroom, when you slide a slider someplace, it doesn't affect your original picture. So Lightroom creates a sidecar file that travels. It's called a sidecar file because it travels with your picture file, and this extra file contains the changes that you're making in Lightroom. I've skipped that. I've stuck my sidecar files into my pictures by using the DNG format in Lightroom. And so it's easier to stick those together. But if you just import pictures into Lightroom and they already have sidecar files from another catalog, Lightroom automatically recognizes those. So there's no extra step. You just have to import them to your catalog.
So I have a question for you, Levi, or maybe Rob, that will maybe sound deep inside of Lightroom, but it will ultimately lead back into doing backups. And so if you go in and you change a piece of metadata, does that get stored in the library, or does Lightroom go and put it back in the original DNG file?
If you're using DNG, that'll stick to the DNG. Or if you're using sidecar files, like if you're using a Nikon NEF files and you don't convert to DNG, then you'll see a sidecar file called XMP that shows up right next to it. Am I wrong about that, Rob? Metadata doesn't stick?
Well, let me not say that you're wrong, Live.
Okay, I'm wrong. I'm wrong.
Let me just add on to that.
That's why you're the help desk guy.
All right, so Lightroom, by default, uses that catalog we've been talking about, right? And so everything you do in Lightroom is written to the catalog first and foremost, always, right? No matter what file format you might be working with. All right, so there is an option that's not turned on by default. Was in the beginning, Lightroom 1, it was turned on, but since then they stopped turning it on by default. So let me
bring it up.
You'll bring it up? Okay, great.
Yep.
So in the if Lightroom is open, and go to the catalog settings, which is under Lightroom on Mac, Edit on Windows, and then go to the metadata panel of the catalog settings. There's an option there that says automatically write changes into XMP. All right, and when that's checked, all right, after Lightroom writes to the catalog, so in Mark's example, make one metadata change, keyword, title, star rating, whatever you do that way. After Lightroom is done writing to the catalog, it also will write that information back to the photo's own metadata space. Okay, if you have a DNG file, then Lightroom can write to the DNG file itself, so it writes it to the DNG file as well as the catalog. All right. If you have a JPEG, it can write to the JPEG. If you have a proprietary RAW file, an NEF, a CR2, a RAF, or whatever your camera format, file format extension is, then Lightroom can't write to those proprietary RAW files, and then it creates this sidecar XMP file. All right. And so the catalog, yes, always. The file, sometimes, if you have it turned on. Okay. There are a few things, though, that Lightroom cannot write to that XMP metadata space that you should be aware of if you're thinking that is going to kind of back you up as well. All right. And so there are 4 things I can think of that aren't written to XMP. One is flags. All right. So if you use flags at all, pick flag,
right.
reject flag, that's not written to XMP metadata space. If you're using collections inside of Lightroom, the regular collection, that's collection membership is not written to XMP member space. Virtual copies are not written to XMP metadata. Snapshots are. All right. So if you create a virtual copy because you want to have a black and white and a color version, all right. If you save a snapshot of your black and white, that's great because that can be written to XMP, but the virtual copy itself cannot.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And then the last thing that's not written to XMP is all the individual history steps in the history panel, right? Your last, latest, and greatest
right.
slider adjustments, my hand signals for that, that is written, the last version of your settings, that's written to XMP, but all that history panel stuff is not. And that's, whether that's bad or good, that's just what it is, all right? So as long as you know that, then yes. So to Tom's question, is it impossible to, kind of bring that back and forth? So if you started by using Bridge or some other program to do like star ratings or keywords, and then you import those into Lightroom, then yeah, that information will be imported into Lightroom during that import process. Lightroom reads the metadata, brings it into the catalog. If you then maybe open up Bridge and continue to keyword after import, Lightroom does not automatically bring that information into the catalog. Right? It is possible in Lightroom under the metadata menu in the library module. There's a read metadata from file menu option that you can kind of suck that in. All right, but it's kind of an all or nothing move. All right. So if you're going to do that, you want to first make sure that Lightroom has written from the catalog to the photo. Then outside of Lightroom, you make some metadata change if that's your workflow for whatever reason. Then Lightroom brings it all back in, right? If you don't have Lightroom right to the photo first, and then you bring in something from outside, you risk maybe losing some of the work you did inside of Lightroom. So, is that me
awesome.
Sharing?
And there's that checkbox.
Okay, yeah, there we go. There it is.
Catalog settings automatically write changes into XMP.
The reason it's not checked by default is because it's one more thing to do, right? So it was originally a performance issue. I think our drives are a lot faster, especially if you have an SSD drive. Lightroom is faster, so maybe that's not such an issue anymore. The other thing to keep in mind, though, kind of coming back to backing up, is if you do have DNG files and you make one little tiny change, like a keyword, Lightroom or your backup system says, oh, that DNG file has changed. I need to back up now this entire DNG file. Right? And all you did was just keyword 10,000 files, right? So
Well,
that might trigger a longer backup process. That's
yeah. So again, that's part of the reason to use backup software instead of something like Time Machine, because Time Machine's at the file level. You change one byte. Yeah. Oh, this is, I add a star. I really like this picture. It's one more star than I rated it. Time Machine sees it, and okay, it'll slurp up another 40, 50 megabytes to make a copy. Other software can be smart enough and do sub-file level, updates. So it's a trade-off in terms of how quickly you consume your backup space.
right.
That's ultimately. I didn't know it was going to be such a such a topic when I set it up. I thought it would be a much simpler question, but
No, never with us anyway. We like to go in the weeds sometimes.
do we have other questions out there?
I think that was the last question. So should we close the hat?
Let's close the hat.
Well, as we wrap up, I want to thank Mark for hanging out with us for this hour and really answering some questions in depth, and I'm really appreciating that. There are some resources right attached to the Hangout page on the Google Hangout page to follow up with some of the bigger backup topics on photo focus, because you definitely want to give it some thought. Some drive compatibility suggestions from Drobo is linked down there as well. Thank you, Drobo, for being a sponsor. Also, thanks to Athentech and Perfectly Clear for being a sponsor as well. And so,
I have one more thing.
Yeah,
I have one more thing for if any of the listeners, if they're interested in buying a Drobo, if they use the code MARK100, MARK100, at drobostore.com, they can save $100.
Wow,
nice. Mark,
that's significant. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think Tom was just saying he likes deals, so there's a deal, $100.
That's right. There's a good deal. That's great.
Thank you, Mark. And so, Mark, so there's a lot of resources. If someone just goes to drobo.com as well, there's a ton of resources on backing up and all the different units and how to figure out which one is right for your needs. Is that true? All on drobo.com?
Yeah, there's a variety of different blog posts that address some subjects and topics. If people have questions, more broad, open-ended like this, maybe let's queue it up for. I think there's going to be another series of Hangouts. We can do that. Or if you want to address it, probably the best way to get me is at Mark Fuccio via Twitter, or you can address at Drobo in Twitter and get it there.
Excellent.
It's easy to find these things, so I think that's two good targets.
Yeah, and anyone can always reach out to us too, and we can reach you as well. So if anyone has anything like that needs that kind of attention, we're happy to help with that. Levi, do we have our winner?
We do. We've got 3 winners. We've got John Webb has won Perfect Eyes, as well as Craig Bueller, and then Tom Polos has won the Perfectly Clear Complete package. So please weigh in right now and tell us you're here, and then just send me an email, levi@photofocus.com, and I will send you a license code.
Great. So just jump in the Q&A and just say here or whatever. And was one of the winners last name actually Bueller? Do we get to go Bueller?
Yes, we get to go. We do. I'm sorry, Craig.
Sorry, you must hear that all the time.
Well, I was just in Chicago last week,
right. For the 30th, this is a 30th
anniversary
of Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Congratulations, Bueller, for being
all right, so
Bueller.
Tom is there. Tom has answered in. So Levi, while we're waiting for those guys, where can people find you and find out more about you?
I'm always on photofocus.com. I'm sharing my everything I learn goes on there. Whenever I figure out a new technique or realize that I'm doing something good, I try to write an article about it for others to use as well. I'm also on Instagram at PhotoLevi, Twitter at PhotoLevi, and I'll be at Photoshop World. Where are you going to be next month?
Hey, yeah, I will be at Photoshop World as well, and I'll get to finally see you in person, because it's been a few months since I have seen you in person, so that'll be great.
Excellent.
Mark,
are you coming? Are you coming to Photoshop World, Mark?
I am not, but Drobo will be there in force.
Oh, great. Oh, good.
Excellent.
Well, we'll look forward to saying hello to those folks. John Webb did chime in. But
yes.
He's already got the full set, so he's happy to
Excellent.
pass it along.
Let me re-enter the drawing here, and it looks like Josh Adams. Josh gets the perfect eyes instead. Thanks for doing that, John. Now, Josh may have won this in the past as well. Are you still here, Josh? Let us know here.
My camera died. There we go. I hit the cord on my camera.
Oh no.
I'm back. And I'm back. And Bueller is here. Thanks, Craig. Sorry about that. It was that's such low-hanging fruit to be calling your name that way. Sorry about that. But it's one of my favorite.
We got Tom. We got Bueller. We got Josh. All right. I've got Josh's email already, so I'll send to him, and maybe Josh can share it with somebody else if he's already got it. So let's close it up and wrap ourselves up.
Well, Mark, thank you very, very much for hanging out with us this month, and we'll definitely have you on again at some point in the next couple months. So if anyone has any backup questions, themes, ideas for a future show, we'd love to hear them. You can email them to Levi at photofocus.com. So it's easy.
Right, that's easy.
Yeah, he shared his email.
That's right. And Rob, where can we catch up with you?
Well, if you're not at Photoshop World, because I'll be doing some Lightroom Live help desk there and moderating classes and hanging out at all the different photo focus events. And
that's worth the price of admission to Photoshop alone, to go sit at the desk with Rob and have him fix your catalog.
Yeah, well, and there's two photo focus breakfasts as well. So you can have breakfast and talk shop, and it's going to be fun. It's always great to see everyone there.
And the party. We've got the pinball party.
That's right. There's the pinball
as well.
party too. So we got morning and evening stuff going on, and then all the wonderful stuff in Photoshop World as well. And then I'm working. Actually, I'm almost done. I'm getting very close to finishing another Lightroom book that's all about taming your Lightroom catalog. Covers some of this. Doesn't go too far into backing up, but it definitely talks about helping you understand where all these files are, so you can back them up, and all these file management issues, and pretty much the 90% of what I answer on the Photoshop on the Lightroom help desk is going in this book. So
awesome.
That should be coming out this summer, hopefully. So
congratulations.
Yeah, it'd be great. That's done.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Levi. Look forward to talking again.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Take good care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. See you guys.